for these leaders.
Do you want this one, Taylor?
That's great. Oh, sure. Yeah, it's you.
Asking if you want
Okay.
it. Okay, fine.
So, are we ready, guys?
We're ready.
Now that we're sitting, I'll introduce it, everyone. And you might say, well, why are these people on the couch together? Well, we've got Hannah and Ethan, and they are together. They are going steady. And so, Hannah and Ethan are going steady.
Like, really, though.
It's good. I'm not even going to. And then we've got Talyn and Tyler, and they date. I was about to say they date the same girls. They don't.
Which is not true.
I was going to say they don't date their. There are two sisters, and they each date one of them. That's what I was going to say. So they're able to share a couch.
The sisters are twins.
Then we've got William in the back. Everyone say what's up, Will.
What's up, Will?
Will's the OG. We've got
Thank you.
Adam. And Adam's name, fun fact, in my phone is still to this day Adam Awesome. I don't know why it's in there that way, but he's the only person with the name Awesome in my phone. So
That's awesome.
maybe that's why. And then we've got the one and only Nikki Martin. What's up, Nikki? And then we've got Eric Goodman. Eric with the swag. And then we've got Riverbend Doyle. And he lives just around the Cedar River Bend. And come on, that was good, wasn't it? Was that funny?
No,
that was funny, right? Was it funny?
Eh.
Funny? Okay. And then last but not least, we have Michaela. And you all know and love Michaela. And so what we're going to do tonight is a little bit, we want it to be conversational. Want it to be fun. Want it to feel like you're in the living room. So if you have your question, make sure that you're submitting those. And there's no question off limits. There's no question too light or too deep. Ultimately, when I think back to my life and formative moments at camp, on a Wednesday night at youth, at church, in my friend's house, with my leaders, all of those kinds of things, the most formative memories that I have, the deepest kind of God moments, were in conversation. I remember times where I'd be up at 3, 4 in the morning at camp, me and different leaders, and we would be talking about the things that we dreamt about. We would be talking about what we wanted to see in the future. We'd be talking about marriage. We'd be talking about kids, all of that kind of stuff. And I remember those moments as so important and so special to me. And I'm hoping that tonight, this kind of conversation will spur on the same kind of stuff. So, with that, maybe we can start a little bit lighthearted.
Let's do it. What's going to be lighthearted?
Somebody asked left Twix or right Twix.
Left Twix or right Twix? Well, what's the answer?
Both Twix.
We're checking the question.
Is there a center Twix?
Go to slido.com.
Center Twix? No, okay, here's a real one. Here's a real question. What is your favorite cereal? We'll start with you, Talyn.
Fruity Pebbles.
Hey, that's also mine.
Wow.
Dated
They
the
have
same
so
girl,
much in common.
Wow.
No, I'm serious. That's mine too. Yeah.
Really?
Same
Fruity
girl.
Pebbles? Like, there's so
Works.
many better cereals than Fruity Pebbles.
Well, everyone's gonna say, everyone on this stage is gonna say Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
No.
But Fruity Pebbles
No,
is
they're
way
not.
better.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch is like top 40, maybe.
This guy's
It's
gonna
good.
say
Top 40
Kellogg's
hit.
Raisin
Waffle
Bran.
Crisp.
Bro,
Waffle Crisp.
you're about to be like Pops or something dumb.
Pops is better than Cinnamon
Need
Toast Crunch.
honeycombs or something.
Honeycomb is good. Honeycomb's good.
Better than Fruity Pebbles.
Special K with
I
strawberries.
don't even know.
Oh, gross! That's in your top 3? This is y'all's
Over
youth
Cinnamon
pastor, by
Toast
the way.
Crunch.
I don't know if you know that.
All right, Adam, would you redeem it? Then what is your favorite? What's your go-to?
Captain Crunch.
Captain Crunch with red berries, peanut butter, or standard?
Standard original.
Thank you. Standard is better than red berries.
No,
Can I
with the
get an
berries, of
amen
course.
that standard, like
original.
regular Captain Crunch, beats red berries every time. How many of you
No,
are
you
red
gotta have
berries
both.
people? Red berries people? Captain Crunch?
I don't discriminate. I like them all.
I want it all. What about you, River?
You don't like cereal?
Life cereal?
Live cereal?
Love
My
life
kids have
cereal.
that every
No.
morning.
Love some life cereal.
Joe, what did your parents give you when you were a kid?
Hey, you guys date the same sisters, so shut up.
I'd rather eat life cereal.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got a lot of questions, but we'll kind of start with a softball here.
He's the sound guy.
So here's
Bro,
a good
you
one.
have to say something good before you can drop the mic.
Here's a good one, and I think this is very relevant to the times that we're living in right now with COVID and a lot of the tension that we feel, and even this week going into new levels of stay at home and lockdown and all that kind of stuff. How do you stay positive when every single day feels the same? How do you stay positive when every day feels the same?
For me, I try very hard to surround myself with people that make me laugh. That helps. Even if you can't see them in person, that helps me stay positive. Yeah. Or like watching content that makes me laugh on YouTube. That helps. But then the content runs out, so oops.
I have my answer.
Get it?
I feel like I've definitely felt that of like, okay, how do I stay positive? Because everything's feeling like very monotonous, like the same day repeating itself, or like the same month repeating itself. Like I feel like this month is March again. I'm like, no way.
Groundhog's year.
This is not real. But I think actually, rather than like having this mindset, like you have to stay positive, what I am coming to realize is that the best thing that I can do and have tried to do is to actually just feel what I'm feeling. And if I'm not feeling positive, that's okay. And I can I cannot feel positive, but I just can't stay there 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I feel like, rather than having the mindset of like, okay, how do I stay positive and like make every day a great day? It's like, well, in a way, some of the stuff you guys are going through as high schoolers and we're each going through in our own lives, like it's not a great day every time. Like it's not always awesome. And I think that's okay to just acknowledge. And kind of like what William was saying, it's like we have to ask ourselves, what are those things that are going to kind of allow us to help pull ourselves out of that funk, because we just can't stay there. And so for me, that is remembering that whether or not, maybe you're someone who's watching from online and you haven't been to church in a while because of COVID, or you're someone who's just, you thrive in that school environment with the social aspect and like you don't have that, is just to remember, okay, I might not have that, but that support system still exists. Yeah. And I might not be able to like go in person and do the things that I used to do, but that doesn't mean I can't reach out to those people and have a good laugh with a friend in a different way, via FaceTime, via whatever. And it's almost like I feel like right now, we're reliving like March and relearning how to engage like online again because of some of the new restrictions and just kind of depending on your circumstances. So for me, it's that, just remembering like we don't have to force ourselves to be positive all the time, but just remember, kind of keep yourself in some checkpoints. Like, okay, if I'm staying low for too long, how can I be reaching out to people and keeping those people who are gonna give me a good laugh, in my life and re-engage with them so that I, and be honest with them too about how you're feeling. And I think people pull us forward.
Yeah.
That's great.
Just to piggyback off of what Michaela said real quick, I think that what you just touched on at the very end there was what I was thinking. And I love that you said it's okay to not feel great all the time, but I love that you said bringing, sharing, like picking your person, check, and letting them in on what's going on in your mind. Yeah. I've had the chance to hear from a few friends that were not having such a positive time, and I myself have been able to share with even people on this stage about where I'm at during this like super weird time, and I feel like that just being able to release that a little bit, just being able to get it out there on the table, can help get you on the right path toward feeling a little more positive as time goes on.
Sure.
That's awesome.
I was just going to say, like, in this season, we also have to remember that we're not in control. And so we got to give up what we feel like is our normal and let God come in and let him be the one to take control of what we're feeling in this season. Because when we try to do it, then we're stuck, and this season feels like, it's the same thing over and over again. But when we give it to God and let go of ourselves and give it to him, I feel like things start to change and shift, and maybe we're not looking at our day-to-day the same. And then it's not the same because we're doing different things to pursue the Lord.
That's great. We were, me and a couple guys were doing a Bible study recently during Blank Space, and we were in Romans, I think it's 3 or 4, where it talks about Abraham, and Abraham he's considered the father of faith, right? And how he was given a promise by God, and God told him that he would be the father of many nations, and through his descendants, God would, redeem the earth and would be, so many people that you wouldn't even be able to count them, more than the stars in the sky, sand in the shore, but then Abraham got to 100 years old and still didn't see that promise, and his wife was 90 and was barren, and nothing was happening. But it said, even though his body was as good as dead, he didn't disacknowledge the reality, but he remembered that God was still faithful and was able to deliver on his promise. And I think one of the things that we have to do is have to remember that the way we feel right now does not define our future. Yeah. It is not permanent. A couple of us were in the office today, and I just wanted to lay on the table. And I was just I'm just done. It was raining outside, and it's just I don't like the restrictions. I don't like the feeling of the times. I don't like it, but I know that it is not permanent.
Yeah.
And I think when we remember it's not permanent, it helps us to get through a little bit easier. So,
yeah, sure.
Let's keep. Riley, thank you so much. Can we give it up for Riley? He brought me my Bible. There's a lot of different ones here, and I want to kind of come back to. There's a lot about sex and purity, and that kind of stuff, and I would love to kind of touch on that a little bit, but I want to wait because that's some gold stuff, and but I want to kind of stick with this theme a little bit. Someone's saying, a lot of people are saying this kind of thing. I was motivated early on to stay close to God. Now I don't really care. How do I reactivate my relationship with God when I don't even feel like I care? You guys probably haven't felt anything like that ever, huh?
I was going to say, first of all, it's okay to feel that and to question God. And if you haven't, if you've been a Christian for a while and you haven't had doubts and you haven't had questions and you haven't had things challenge your faith, like a global pandemic or anything like that, then not to be negative, but things will come, challenges come, and that's, I think we've all been through that. So I think first off, just to kick it off, that's normal. You're normal to feel like that. Practical how-tos, how to be motivated.
I think one thing with a question like this, with when you need to reactivate your relationship with God, is just remembering that even when we're distant from God and we have kind of just put our attention in other places, or we haven't been active in that relationship, it's not like God is any less active. God has been moving and active the whole time. It's more about us just tuning back in. And I feel just if that is you, I would just encourage you that it doesn't have to be you have to take these 10 steps to re-engage your faith, and then it will all be back to that easy flow. It's more that you just make you in your heart, you really just say, okay, God, I'm tuning my ear back to you. And literally it's as simple as every day, every moment we have that opportunity to go back to God and just acknowledge him in our life. And I feel for me, when I have had those off just whole seasons where it's I'm not acknowledging God in my life, the biggest thing I can do is just acknowledge him. Like, just acknowledge him. And that in that moment when I realize it, like, just pray and thank God and just let him know, hey, I'm listening. I've been off, but I'm listening. And I think that in and of itself is like the simplest but best thing you can do. And I think sometimes we complicate it, but God didn't change. We just tuned out, I think, is what I've come to realize.
Great.
I don't know. I would really challenge this thinking. If you're feeling that way, again, to Ethan's point, it is natural. I've felt it many times. But when I'm in that season, I evaluate, am I trying to get something from God, or am I serving him because I'm obedient? And am I giving to him instead of trying to just always receive? Because if we're going through seasons like we're going through and we're not getting what we feel like we deserve or we need, then it's easy to like, well, I'm just going to chill and I'm not going to do this anymore because it's not doing anything for me. But that's not what we're called to do as Christians. We're called to worship God and serve God in all things. And a few weeks ago, someone, I think during a Take 5, brought up Job. And Job served God in all of those seasons, all those things, all those rounds of temptation, all the things that happened, which are way worse than anything that we're going through. And if that's how we're going to be living our life and that's what we're called to do, then that's what we should be doing in this season. And so I'm not saying that it's not natural to feel like, oh, I'm just not feeling it. But then I would really challenge you on whether it's like, are you being obedient and are you serving God because that's what we're called to do as Christ followers? Or are you doing it because you're just trying to get something from God?
That's awesome.
Good, Adam.
Tyler, maybe I'll hit you with this one, just because, for no reason. One person, and it kind of tags on to what Adam was just talking about in that question, but recently I've felt angry, irritated, frustrated all the time, and I don't know why. And it gets worse sometimes at night, sometimes during the day. I feel numb. What can I do?
I think you did ask me this on purpose. So 2 weeks ago, I was laid off. And I think we have a couple people on the stage who have gone through something similar to that. And we're living in a season where we are going through drastic change. And it doesn't just happen where we can see something coming. We go from, I don't think many of us woke up on Sunday morning thinking, wow, my life is about to change again. A lot of us knew that something was coming again, and we had seen the numbers and the spikes in cases, but a lot of us didn't envision like, oh my gosh, everything is shutting down again. But all of a sudden, it's there. And so I think what we have to remind ourselves with is that in these moments where something drastic takes place in our life, our response to have the desire to have a dramatic and drastic response to that is natural and is human. And so for us to say, wow, I'm really bothered by this, as we start to identify those things that cause us grief and cause us pain in our lives, we're able to move on from that. But it's okay in that moment to say, God, I'm angry. I think we look at prayer, and I think other people could probably touch on this too. We look at prayer as, I need to have this perfectly scripted, like something a 12th century monk wrote out on beautiful parchment while humming for 8 hours. And I don't think God wants us to have that type of relationship, that type of conversational. God wants to know in those moments when we're angry, like, I'm angry. I'm pissed off. I don't like how this is going. This isn't how I saw things. And so when we look at anger and when we look at resentment, I've been carrying a lot of that for the past couple of weeks, dealing with my job and dealing with this kind of betrayal in that season. And I just had moments where I was just angry. I wanted to punch a wall. But what I've started to teach myself is, look, it's okay for me to be angry. It's okay for me to have these feelings. Similar to a lot of things, it's when I decide to act on those and act in an irrational way, like I'm experiencing these irrational things, that's where I get myself into trouble. And so if I can take and separate that, give myself 5 minutes. Give myself 5 minutes of grace. I think we could all lean towards giving ourselves 5 minutes of grace and then moving on with the right response.
Yeah, I also just want to echo, Tyler is brilliant. I think what he said is awesome. I think also it's so important for you to find someone in your life who you can talk to about it. because I think, especially at night, you get in this like bubble where you feel alone and you feel like no one else understands what you're going through. Your thoughts are way louder than anything else that's going on, and it's really, really important to, in that moment, stop that from happening, and to reach out to someone that you trust, that you can talk to. It is supremely important to stop those sorts of habits from taking over your mind, because they will if you don't do something to stop them from doing that.
That's great. I'll ask another one here in a second, but I think too, just making decisions in the light before you go into the dark, that you know when you're in the dark, you already know the decision that you made beforehand. So it's like when you feel the pressure, you're already anchored to a decision. So like if the day ever comes where I lose my job, if the day ever comes where I get broken up, I know there are certain things I'm allowed to feel, but there are certain things that I will not do. So she breaks up with me. I know one of my options is not to blast her on social media. So I made that decision beforehand so that when I feel like blasting her on social media, I already know that is a decision I already settled. I won't do that, right? But I think sometimes we put off the decisions, and then when we're in the pressure, when we're in the dark, we make a decision, and you never make a decision in the dark. Make the decision in the light. And maybe it's not with a relationship, but maybe it's when your dad gets laid off. Or maybe it's when somebody says something about you and you overhear it and it hurts your feelings. Maybe it's 10 years from now when somebody does something to hurt you, you forgive before it's ever happened. And that's just the way of Jesus. And that's what we do, because then it keeps us soft and it keeps us from doing things in reaction. Instead, we're doing them proactively. But, sometimes we are in church, right? We're in church. It's easy to fake in church. One person said, I feel like I put a smiley face on all the time because I don't want to explain what's really going on. When have some of you guys experienced that? How have you navigated that? How have you come out of that? What would you say to somebody who's putting on the smiley face? Because there's a good and a bad to putting on a smiley face, right? Mm-hmm. Eric, what do you say to somebody who puts on the smiley face?
I think for me, a huge thing is just making sure that I'm reminding myself that not to put on a fake smile, but to remind myself who I am in Christ.
Ooh, that's good.
And to remind myself that if I'm not acting in a way that is reflecting Christ and what I'm doing, then I'm missing it. And no matter what, just trying my best to, I guess, push through it. Because there's no perfect answer to how do you not put on a fake smile. I think that's a tough question. But I guess don't be fake, Be real with people. Be open and honest that something's going on. Reach out to people, kind of like William was saying, and, ask for help. Because when you try and do it on your own, that's when you're destined to fail. But when you're asking for help and you're reaching out to your leaders, to your friends, and you explain what's going on in your world, then that opens up opportunity for them to help you and to help you get through that.
Just to piggyback on this is why I'm such a huge believer in small groups, because it's so important to find your small group, find your tribe, find your people, where if you feel like, if you come to UD on a Wednesday or you go to church on a Sunday and you don't feel like you can authentically be yourself, go find your 3, 4, 5, 6 people where you can go be yourself and talk about what's really going on. If you don't feel like you can do that in a space, with all these people. I have a small group of guys. We've been together since probably for the last 7 years. And it's been the single most amazing thing that's changed my life is even when I didn't live in Seattle and I was living in Phoenix, we still were in group chats. We still were talking about our problems. We still were, encouraging and praying for each other. And so that literally is the biggest strength and thing that I can encourage you with. To Eric's point is, you can't do it on your own. And so if you feel like you can't do that with, 100 people, a couple hundred people at UD or whatever, go find your 6 people in your small group and go do life with them and find a place where you can be safe and talk about those things.
Can I add something real quick?
Yeah.
So also,
No.
I just want to highlight something that he said because he said it really quick. You have to find people in your life that you can be who you actually are around. I think it's really, really, really important. It's okay if sometimes you come in a certain circle of friends and you are a certain way. That is okay. It's not you being fake or you being weird. It is you just kind of realizing, okay, I can't be this says a weird joke type of person in front of all these people. But find your 6 people that you can be whoever you want to be around. And I think it's really important. I wanted to highlight that. Thank you.
But then, and I'll add even more to that, is be the kind of person that when you're not the frowny face, that when your friend with the frown comes in, that you be the smiley face and lift.
Yeah.
Not to force them to change, but to add value to them.
Yeah.
Like misery loves company, right? Mm-hmm. So if I'm sad, my human tendency wants to be around other people who are sad so we can sulk together.
Yeah.
But I'm thankful for the people in my life that when I'm sad, they allow me to be me, so exactly what William was saying, but then they also encourage me, right? They're the one who adds laughter. Laughter is a good medicine. Scripture says that. And so rather than pulling you further down, they say, you're low, and I'm going to sit with you, but I'm going to make you laugh while you sit down here, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to make you smile. I'm going to add value to you so that you know that you're not alone down here, right?
Yeah. I'll add just one thing. So when I kind of heard this question, I've just been thinking about it. What it reminded me of my own life is a situation I was going through in high school where I just held it in, right? And you could say it was like having a fake smile when you're with people, but really when I think about it, it's like I wasn't having a fake smile with people. It was just that there's stuff that goes on in our soul that not everyone can handle. And it's not for everyone. And I think what you guys are saying about finding those close people, it's so true. And that's what these leaders on the stage are here for.
Yeah.
Is when you feel like, I feel like I'm putting on this fake smile, but at the same time, who do I talk to? Like, who can handle this? Because when you hear friends in your group talking about other people's problems in your group, we've all been there, you get that check in your mind and you're like, ooh, I can't share this because I'm gonna get talked about when I leave, right? And they're not bad people, they don't mean to, but it happens, right? And so I also want to just encourage you guys, I know that's what it was for me when I was in high school. It's like I had some intense stuff going on that I can look back and think, oh, I was being so fake. It was a fake smile when I was like leading this or doing that. It's like, it wasn't fake. It was just that in the public setting of UD with 100 kids at youth, that wasn't my time, right? I don't need to go and take what's going on in my world and put it on everyone else. Like, I am okay to come to lead and to allow those heavy things to like kind of fall by the wayside and come in and just experience God and do what I need to do here, and then find those people who I can truly trust and who can kind of handle what's going on. And I would encourage you guys too, if you're feeling that way, one thing people talk about this in sports all the time. It's like, leave it off the field or leave it off the court or whatever. And when you come in, you check in and you you play the game and it can be your happy place. And I hope that for you guys who do come to UD and call UD home, that this can be your happy place. That you can come in and kind of leave everything off the field and know that, you don't have to do the fake smile, but you also don't have to put out there anything that you're not ready to process with the group, right? And it's okay to find that smaller group of people to share with who can truly help you. And for some of you guys, that can be, a leader that maybe you just haven't taken that step to go say, hey, let's go get coffee, or let's, get coffee through the drive-thru and then talk through our window in the parking lot, or FaceTime or whatever it is. But I'd encourage you to take that step if you need to have those conversations for sure.
That's good. Hannah, I got one for you. Dating. Talk to me about it. And there's a bunch about this kind of stuff, but I want to segue into it.
Everyone's so quiet, but there's literally 900 questions about dating. So I know
I
y'all are
need to hear
excited
some
right
like
now,
yells.
so.
Like, whatever. If something's good, be like, that's good. Hannah, talk to us about, not just about Ethan. Like, what's your favorite?
just
Like,
want-
Talk to us about
what do you
wanna
like
hear
better?
about
His
Ethan.
eyes, his smile?
Try not to talk
Just tell us all about Ethan.
Tell us about Ethan. What's your favorite thing?
Check.
Why Ethan? What attracted you to Ethan? I don't mean that.
Don't talk about
Give me a
Ethan.
break, people.
It's his guitar skills. I mean, it's obvious.
Is it
Oh,
working?
is it off?
Hello.
Is it on? There it is.
You're good. Here, use mine.
We live together. It's fine. Michaela and I, not Ethan and I.
Ooh, there it is.
That I
Okay,
should
so
do
you
that.
just opened the door. How did you approach your relationship with Ethan at the beginning? What were some of the intentional decisions you made? I know there's people in here. How many of you are dating? You have dated, or you want to date someone sometime, somewhere? Everyone. So give us some wisdom in dating. This is something that we talk about a lot. It's something we haven't talked about in a little bit of time. It seems like forever, since before COVID, that we really kind of narrowed in on some of this stuff. So give us some wisdom on how to approach dating, how to date right, so that later in your relationship, you bear the fruit of that.
Well, first off, I didn't have good relationships before Ethan, and so I think I have a unique framework for this specific topic. Ethan and I have been dating for like 2.5 years, but before that, when I was in college and even in high school too, I wouldn't say, let me see how to frame this well. I definitely idolized what I wanted and tried to kind of like manipulate the situation, manipulate the guy, manipulate myself and my mindset. And I conceded on things that were huge pillars in a relationship that I shouldn't have conceded on. And I allowed negative behaviors and negative patterns to happen. And so when I decided to leave a very toxic relationship that I'd been on and off for probably like 2.5 years, and I chose to have a season of singleness. I was super intentional with that time, read a lot of books, listened to a lot of podcasts, talked to a lot of friends, talked to a lot of mentor figures in my life about what I wanted. And genuinely, like, this sounds so cheesy, but I just prayed on and on and on and on for not only myself in that future relationship, but the specific person that God was going to bring into my life. And so I had been praying for Ethan for a year plus before I met him. And when we did meet each other, we both like shared our stories of our past and stuff. And it's so cool because we were both praying for each other way before we met each other. And so knowing what you want, whether you learned it from something that you had that you didn't want, whether it was a crappy relationship before, or whether you look up to a mentor couple who has a great relationship that you're like, I want that, I want to mimic that. I think knowing what you want and knowing what things you're not willing to compromise on is huge. Yeah.
That's really great. So follow up to that, and any of you guys can answer this, but for you first, Hannah, what did you do differently? I know you spoke to it a little bit. You prayed. You were praying for him. You guys were praying for each other, which I think is such a huge lesson. Like, you have to know what you want before you get it. Yes. So that when it comes, you know if it is. Because I see this a lot, and some of you could attest to this. Because you didn't know what you want, you settled for not God's best. And if somebody's not God's best for you, it doesn't mean they're not God's best for somebody else. Yeah. It just means if it's the wrong person, they are not God's best for you. Yeah. The girl that I dated in high school was not God's best for me. Not to say that she wasn't. She's married now to somebody else, doing great. She was God's best for somebody else, but not me. And we both settled for each other. We both were. So what was different this time around that maybe before we enter into our relationships that we can learn from?
Yeah. I think what was different this time around is not only was I older and more mature and knew what I wanted, but I had a relationship with God When I was dating people before Ethan, I knew God, but I didn't have a relationship with him, and I think that that's huge. There's a big difference between knowing God and having a relationship with him, just the same way that I know Michaela, but if I have a relationship with her, I get fed from that, and then in turn, I get to feed her with that as well. And so having that relationship with God was huge. And then for Ethan and I, just like nitty-gritty down to details, when we first started dating, we were long distance. So I was at college and he was here. And so, again, a very unique framework, but I think you can take something from this. We had to be 100 times more intentional with our time that we spent together, and we had to have the hard conversations very fast. We had to set boundaries very fast. When you're away from each other for a month and you see each other for a weekend, it's hard not to want to jump each other's bones, but you can't, just to be just to be frank with you, you have to have those hard conversations, and sometimes they can be awkward and feel like it's too fast, but it has served us well in a sense that we know each other's boundaries and we respect them. But being able to be like, hey, I want you for the long haul and I want to be with you. And so like, what do you need in a relationship? What do I need? And how can we mimic that and make sure that we can best serve each other? And also, like, if Ethan and I didn't work, if we like had those conversations, we were like, it doesn't work, that's okay. And don't force someone to be something that they're not, because it's never going to work out and you're only going to end up disappointing yourself.
That's great.
Let me add one thing to what she said, because there's something about what you talked about that is really good. Every guy in this room tonight, go home, take out a piece of paper, and write down every single quality you want to see in a spouse someday.
Yes.
I'm not saying that girls, you can do this too, but I would imagine a lot of you have already done this. Guys, it takes us a little more effort to get to that point.
Girls, raise your hand if you've done it. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay. So I'm not up.
Oh my gosh.
I did it before I met Hannah.
Okay, very good. So I did this when I was in 7th grade. And I had that list up until I met my wife. And I still have that list. But everything that fit onto my list was not like, my wife now did not hit everything on that list. And that was okay, because I'm going to change as I grow and as I mature. But there were some things on that list that I said, this is who I am. This is who I'm going to be. This is what I believe. That will never change. And I need to find someone who's going to mesh with that. My wife does not like Mountain Dew and Doritos. I did when I was in 7th grade. That was not a non-negotiable for me at the time, and I was okay letting that go at 25. So, but go home, write a list. Because two things will happen. One, you'll know what you want, or you'll know the direction of what you want. And then when that person comes along, you don't have to think about if they're somebody that you want, because they're already in that position. I already set these like ideas and kind of these goals and these values that I wanted to see. The second thing that does, you will do anything to see that relationship through with that person then. And that involves setting those boundaries. If you have somebody that you have put on a list that said, this is kind of the person that I would like to spend the rest of my life with and that I would like to explore a relationship with, the boundary conversation that you have to have, it won't be as difficult. There'll still be times where you have urges, because that's who we are and that's the things that we deal with. But you're willing then to say, I'll do whatever I want to keep this relationship in place and to keep it till we get to the place where we're married someday and we have a God-centered relationship for the rest of our lives, because you'll do whatever it takes to keep this person in your life.
That's great.
One thing I'll add real quick is to Tyler's point, that when you go make your list, that is a living, breathing document. It's not a one and done. He mentioned it before, but after every failed relationship, go back to it and figure out, okay, this person did not have this, or this is way more important than I thought it was, and then go add to it. Because, again, who you are when you're 13, 14, 15 is not who you are when you're 20, 21, 25, 28, 40, whatever. And so make sure that you are always going back to that and learn something from those failed relationships and add that to,
so
this
good.
is more important than I thought.
Well,
Yeah,
and
totally look at that every couple of months. Like, always keep going back to that. Anytime you meet somebody who you're interested in, go look at that list. Anytime that a relationship ends that you were really excited about and it didn't work out, go look at that list and reevaluate. Absolutely.
Well, in Scripture, I would encourage you to write this down. Scripture says, where there is no vision, the people cast off restraints. And in other words, what it's saying is, like if I'm LeBron James and I don't have a vision to win rings, like to get more rings, then it's going to allow me to eat late night apps every night. It's going to allow me to have 3 bowls of cereal in the morning. It's going to allow me to not work out because I don't have a vision to win more rings. Kind of like Sean Kemp, who lives in our area, and me and Adam saw him at Applebee's. I got a picture with him. And let me tell you, he is no longer the Rain Man. Raise your hand if you even know who I'm talking about. Seattle Supersonics. Come on, people.
Sean, we
RIP.
still love you. If you watch our live stream, it's
But the reason that a great athlete stays in shape is because they have a vision. If you do not have a vision, you will settle for something way worse than God's best. Some people are like, why do Christians care so much about other people's sex lives? That's not the point. Why do people care about, why do Christians and pastors and Christian leaders in the Bible try and control how people live? It has nothing to do with it. It has everything to do with God is best. And God knows what is best. And God created you by design, and every relationship is meant to be by design, because when you live by design, you get what it was designed for.
If you
When
want,
you don't do it, you settle for what's less.
if you want a relationship to crash and burn, don't establish boundaries.
Yeah. And it's those boundaries, it's that vision that keeps you motivated. So, let me ask you this. Maybe River, there's people up here married. Talyn just got engaged. You guys are dating. I've been married for 12 and a half years. We've got single. We've got everything in between. So it's like, what are some of those boundaries? What are some of the, or maybe it's not boundaries, but it's non-negotiables. Things that are so important when it comes to your relationship or future relationships in your life. River, do you want to go forward?
Yeah. So for me, like, I had a relationship in high school that, like, wasn't the best, and what got me out of that was just like, what?
You got a heavy mask, bro.
Sorry, bro. Sorry. I'm sorry, guys.
You're behind. You're good. You're good.
So
Distance.
let's backtrack. So I was in high school and I had a relationship that was good, but it wasn't what God intended for me.
I remember
And-
that.
Yeah, and I was dating a
Nice
person.
girl. She was a nice girl.
Yeah, great person. No slandering, but like just wasn't a Christian, and like that's a hard thing to go through with as a Christian. And what brought me out of it was like, and any problem that I've had in relationships is like, in 20 years, am I going to wake up happy with this person, or am I going to regret? Not like regret. Hello? Oh, cut out. But like regret like this decision and not be in the place that God wants me to be in 20 years. And like that's the thing we have to think about is like in the short term, it's fine. Like I can put this off. It's fine. It'll change. But when you really look in the mirror and think about it, like in 20 years, is this going to be a good relationship, or is this going to be something I regret doing?
Wow. It's deep. What about you, Eric? Or Michaela? Or Nikki?
What was the question?
all you.
Non-negotiables. Relationship. You're dating someone.
Well, obviously, before marriage, sex is a non-negotiable. It's not allowed. It saves you a lot of heartache, to be honest, because later on down the line, and potentially a baby, just being real. It saves you a lot of heartache because there is a level of closeness and intimacy that comes along with doing that, and that's only designed to be in the context of between a man and a woman being married. And so when you include that into your dating relationship, it takes it to a place that it was never meant to go. And so you start thinking things, saying things that, or having conversations you shouldn't really be having until you've reached the point of the depth of relationship when you are a man and a woman committed to each other for the rest of your life. Helicopter.
I don't know if on the live stream you can hear, but there's a helicopter quite literally landing on our ceiling right now.
It's Sean Kemp.
They're coming for us.
Tim and Sir Mix-a-Lot.
Everyone wearing masks. Just kidding.
Anybody else? Non-negotiables, dating, current, later, future.
I always told myself that no matter what relationship I end up in, and this is before I became a Christian and gave my life back to God, that I want to have a wife, fiance, girlfriend, whatever, that serves the Lord, that is dedicated to Jesus first. And I met my girlfriend in church, and so I was like, here we go. Like, that's the non-negotiable number one. Cross that off the list. Also, if she doesn't like the Seahawks on Sunday, we can't date. And no, I'm kidding. It was a joke, guys. That laugh, like, geez. It was. I was kidding. It was a joke, but no, seriously. And some of the things that like I wanted was someone who was passionate about serving other people and not putting themselves first, putting other people first. And I'm literally explaining to my girlfriend, my fiance. No cheers. But no, seriously, like I found this person, and as I realized, like, what is it that I want in my relationship? I didn't write anything down, like, honestly, I didn't. But I just kind of knew, like, okay, these are the things I'm looking for. These are the things I won't, like, settle. Like, I'm not just going to settle. I want this, this, and this. And I found it in this one person, and I knew, like, once I found those things, that I was going to do everything in my power to make sure that relationship worked. But if it didn't, I wasn't going to, like, force it, right? And one thing I remember, not every relationship is easy, right? So Jordan and I had a rough patch, and I remember going home and writing down, like, the pros, and then I remember writing down the cons, and the pros outweighed the cons, so I was like, I'm going to make this work. And I remember having that conversation with her.
Having that conversation with you.
Yeah, I was like, dude, I'm going to write down the pros, I'm going to write down the cons, and if the pros outweigh the cons, I'm going to make this work.
Give us a list of the cons. I'm kidding. Doesn't like the Seahawks.
No,
okay.
I won't do that. But it became one of those things where I was going to fight for it because I knew what, like this was going to work because I loved more about her than I didn't. And don't force it if it doesn't work. What I'm trying to say is, like, if you're in a relationship, and even if they do have all those, like, non-negotiables, and, like, you wrote down your list and that's your person, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Like, there's more fish in the sea, right? Like that, there's more fish in the sea. So you're going to be fine finding someone else with the same list that you created. Don't force it. Like, do what I did. Write down the pros, write down the cons, and try and make it work if it works, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you got to have rhythm. You got to have chemistry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just going to add real quick on to Lynn's thing I feel like there's a lot of times, especially within the church, it's like if you start dating someone, like, you're supposed to marry that person. It's not healthy. Like, if that person doesn't hit your list, if they don't hit your non-negotiables, don't date them. Yeah. It's like a lot of times you force it because you either like what it feels like to be with someone, or you're getting validation from it, or you feel it's filling an insecurity by being with somebody. But then you force it into a marriage, and that's going to create more problems than if you just decide that, like, hey, we're going to date and it's not working, let it go. There's nothing wrong with that. That's why dating exists, because you'd much rather break up with somebody when you're dating compared to when you're married.
I have one.
Yeah.
Okay, so one thing that someone else told me at one point, but I have, taken to heart, is remembering that that person isn't just who they are to you and how they make you feel. Like, you want to look for, how do they operate in their life? How are they operating right now in their friend group? So if you guys are at UD and you have your eye on someone and you're thinking, okay, I'm listening to the leaders, like, I'm taking your advice, I'm going to write my list. Like, be watching that person now in the friend circle you're already in. How do they treat the girls that they're not interested in? How do they treat their mom? How do they open doors for girls that they're not interested in? Or if they, if there's not someone who's gonna serve them in some way, they kind of ignore them, or they're rude, they're not a gentleman. Like, that's the kind of stuff you wanna look for, because ladies, we love the attention. Okay, so sometimes we see a red flag.
I like attention too.
Okay, but I'm
Just
just
never got
I like
okay,
attention.
I don't know.
We
I
know.
don't know. I'm
I
just
like attention.
saying, the girls, okay, we like when we're given the attention, and it can become easy to ignore a red flag. We've all ignored a red flag before. So I think one thing is to remind yourself, like, if you're in that stage of, okay, I have my eye on this person, before kind of getting to that idealization where you're like, but when they're with me, they're so this way. Well, that's a red flag if they are different than when they are.
on- ladies,
Okay.
the 3 ladies up here,
Yeah.
give us some more red flags. Speak to the
Oh,
men.
there's so many. What?
Listen up,
We got
some
boys.
guys
Listen
in
More
up.
red
here.
flags?
Listen up.
Guys are
Just red
historically
flags in
just
general.
red flags. Like,
Okay, red
tell us what do us guys do that we got to stop doing?
If all your Snapchat best friends are girls, red flag.
True.
don't
Okay.
have Snapchat.
If you're a guy who, you know, ladies, if the guy that you like, you're like, oh, like he's so friendly and flirty with me, but like he's friendly and flirty with like every girl in the friend group, like
He gets a lot of hugs.
it's a red flag. Yeah, if he's a where's my hug guy, like that's a red flag. That's a red flag.
And let me say, I was in high school.
Where my hug at?
I was jealous of the let me get my hug guys. Because none of the girls.
Why would you be jealous of that guy though?
Someone right now in the
'Cause I
audience
wanted
is
more
pointing to their
hugs.
friend who's
Just
a where
be
my
real.
hug at
But
guy.
that's the desperate dude that's walking up to the girl like, yo, can I?
Exactly. God
Can I get a
spared
hug?
me, bro.
Like-
God spared me.
And then the girls are like, yeah, sure.
I wasn't bold enough. I wasn't bold
Sure.
enough.
And then they go back to their friend group and they're like, I don't know why I did that.
Any other
We
red
want-
flags? Give us some more red
Oh,
flags.
we
Just talk
could-
to the
we
guys.
could go all night.
Go for it. Go for it. Let's.
Well, this is not a lighthearted red flag, but like, ladies, red flag if you feel like you're being hidden, like you're like kind of being led on, and you guys like talk all day and you text all day and you snap all day, but then like when you're at UD, like it's not real. The energy isn't matched. Red flag. Red flag. Don't do it.
But what if the guys are just nervous to like actually approach?
Then why are they're not nervous over text?
Well, yeah, like I wasn't nervous over text, but
Not
in person,
mature, not
when
mature enough,
No,
not mature
no,
enough
seriously,
then.
no. When I was, and this is not like taking away from like the
No, it's-
anyway,
no, it's good,
but
it's
like
good.
when I was first dating back in high school, I was a Don on text messages. Right? Like I was the guy. Like I could say and do anything in the text messages.
Right.
But when it came to like face-to-face conversations, I liked her so much I froze. So
Right.
like you can't fault the guy, right? You guys, you men out there that like these girls really, and you don't show that in person, you can't fault them for that. They're just nervous.
but I think you got to communicate.
Yes.
Of course,
you
they're
gotta
communicating
communicate.
over text messages.
Yeah,
You
if you
can't
got
just
golden
hope-
fingers on the text message, but then can't carry on a conversation, then they need to grow, and that's a red flag too. So
Yeah.
You're
and-
allowed to
That's
be
what I'm
nervous. I'm not like don't down. You're allowed to be a little shaken up in front of the girl you like. Don't downplay that at all.
Okay, be nervous. You're good to be nervous. I'm just saying, ladies, if you don't feel that the guy that you're interested in is proud of you when you are out in public or isn't good to, right, be proud of the relationship. That's more what I'm speaking to.
Yeah.
If you're nervous, though, it's okay. Talk to Talin. He'll teach you how to be smooth.
Yeah, that's right. But like, know your worth, you know? And I mean this both to guys and to girls. Like, God did not create you and then say you're not worthy. God created you worthy of his best. So act like it. Live up to it. And even Paul throughout the New Testament says time and time again, do your best to live your life worthy of the calling that God gave you. God created you with a call. He created you with a purpose. So live up to it. This is not an impossible standard so much as it's an aim. Go for it. Live according to God's word, according to God's best, according to God's design. And guess what? When you do that, God will match you up with somebody who's doing the same. And this is what I loved about Noelle. And what I still love about Noelle is that she didn't need a guy to complete her. And let me say this. I heard this years ago, and I have held on to it. Noelle does not complete me. God completes me. God made me whole, and in him I am whole. And God made Noelle whole, and in him, or in God, she is whole. She does not need me to complete her. And as much as we complement each other, there's a difference between complementing and completing. You do not exist to complete someone. Well, they have issues with their dad, but don't worry, I'll come into their life and fix it. No, you will not. In fact, they need to heal before they're ready for you, before you're ready for them. So you need to be the kind of person who instead, I am complete in God. I know who I am in God, and if she breaks my heart, it does not change how I see myself, because God told me how worthy I am. So worthy that he sent his son to die. And you've got to know your worth. When you don't know your worth, you try and find it and create it in others. And so you change who you are, or you force somebody else to change so that you can feel more worthy than you actually are. And so, and then I'll give you a scripture, 2 Corinthians 6. Read the whole chapter, but 6:14, don't be yoked together with unbelievers, because what fellowship does light have with darkness? And I would just encourage you, get somebody who's moving in the right direction, chasing God, serving the church, building others, and walk alongside someone who's doing the same. And I think you're gonna win. There's a lot around that, relationships, dating, all that kind of stuff. We only have a few more minutes though, and one of you guys said, I think, Tillin, you were saying you got to fight. In or out of dating a relationship, you got to fight for your relationships. By show of hands, how many of you have someone in your world who you know and love, who you disagree with in some way, shape, or form politically? How many of you, keep your hand raised if you've had someone share something on social media based on something they believe or an opinion they have, that when you saw it hit you wrong? How many of you've gotten into, you've seen something on social media and then you see them in person and it's awkward because you still know and love them, but it's hard for you to let go of what you saw online? I think if you're at home, every single hand is lifted. So, how do we deal with this? This isn't necessarily political. I mean, and I'm not asking us to get political, like, what do you think of, the president? What do you think of our governor? What do you think of, the high school security officer? Whatever.
Yeah.
I got thoughts.
But let's talk about that.
I got thoughts. Okay, so I have this exact thing with someone in my family who I love a lot. She's been around my whole life. So I think the biggest thing for this is we do not see eye to eye on a lot of things political, almost all things political. But the thing that saved our relationship and why I have such a good relationship with my mother, I'll just call it out, she's not going to watch, but whatever, is I always filter things through love. And the fact that I'm just trying to understand where she's coming from. I know I'm never going to change her opinion. I know we're never going to see eye to eye. I know we're never going to agree, but there's respect on both sides of she wants to know what I think, and I want to know what she thinks, and we're not going to agree, and we still can walk away knowing that we love each other and we respect each other, and that is not going to come between us. And so I think if we filter, especially as Christ followers, we're called to love and respect our neighbors, our family, our siblings, our whoever it is. And so if you filter all those relationships, all those conversations through the fact that how would Jesus treat this person? There's times all throughout the Bible where he disagreed with political leaders or the Pharisees or whatever, and he always asked questions and filtered it through love. And so I think if we can take that same mindset into those conversations, you're going to be able to work through a lot of that stuff.
I think another thing too is we're not the ultimate judges. That's God's job. So we can disagree and we can hold strong feelings, negative or positive, towards another person, but it's not our job to say they think this, they're a crappy person. We don't get to make those decisions. And I think, like Adam just said, I encourage you to have those hard conversations that can feel uncomfortable and that you obviously disagree, but that's where growth is going to come from. Yeah. You're not going to grow if you sit in your little Republican, liberal, whatever you are, corner and mope and pout that someone disagrees with you. Figure out why. Challenge yourself. Expand. You guys are young. This is your time to grow. And also, as someone who broke off political views from their parents, you don't have to believe what your parents believe. And if you want to believe something else, if you want to educate yourself and break out from that, stem out from that, I encourage you to do that as well.
Well, yeah, and I think when you do that, it's kind of like you don't take anything for face value. So if you've got, say you have parents, you have aunts and uncles, grandparents, whatever, I've dealt with a lot of people like that, where they do tend to break off or whatever, but you don't look at them, A, you look at them through the lens of love, but B, you don't assume they're right or wrong, you just assume they could be right and they could be wrong. And when you know that they could be right and they could be wrong and you could be right and you could be wrong, it forces you to test. And if you can learn to test things against the truth, you'll come to a good conclusion that is not based on bias, but it's actually based and rooted in truth.
Let me add this. I think when we look at the disagreements that we have with people in our lives, it doesn't necessarily come from a place of our own knowledge or where we're at. A lot of times it's a relationship issue. And it's how do we enter into conversations and viewpoints with the people in our lives. And we've kind of lost the ability to have respectful disagreement with other people. And I think that if we trace that root back to something, it comes from an insecurity of comparison. We look at people in our lives who think differently than us, or think one way and we think the other way, or maybe we think the same way as them, and we compare ourselves with them. We say, I'm smarter than that person and they believe this, so my way is right and theirs is wrong. And I think if we want to have healthy discussions with people, we have to stop letting those start from a place of comparison. I'm going to compare myself to somebody else before we even go into a discussion. I had somebody really important in my life long time ago tell me that there's only one person that you should ever seek to compare yourself to be better than, to be smarter than, to be wiser than, to be stronger than, and that's who you were yesterday. Everybody else in your life...
Say that again. You don't have to say it again.
Gotcha.
But
Okay.
That was so good.
So there's only one person in your life that you should aim to be smarter than, wiser than, stronger than, and better than, and that's who you were yesterday. And if you can conquer that, if you can learn that I'm not here to compare myself to Talyn, I'm not here to compare myself to Ethan, to Taylor, to Michaela, to any leader up here, to anybody else out here. I'm not here to compare if I am smarter or stronger or anything else than you, but I'm looking at who I am yesterday, and am I better off today than I was yesterday? Then you can enter into those conversations with those people.
That's great. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, I just think one little thing is for me, I've had to really help myself by remembering some issues politically or ideologies that I once held that I've really changed from over the years. And remember, what if someone was judging my old view as hard as I judge some other people who have different views than me? And I'm like, I wouldn't want that judgment. And I think just remembering everyone has room to learn and grow and evolve. We have to have grace and belief for people, especially if you're someone you are educated, you feel you've educated yourself and you have a strong opinion for a reason. Remember that you got to that place for a reason, and give someone else the chance to get there as well. And if you are really have that strong of a conviction, then awesome. I hope you have it for good reasons. And then be passionate enough to want someone else to come to your side rather than saying, I'm just so upset with you that you can't see it yet that I'll never give you the chance.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that someone gave me the chance to change my opinions at some point, because I hope that we've all had changed opinions at some point in our lives, and I would hope that I can give other people the chance to change and grow as well.
Last thing I'll add is I know I mentioned love and respect, but the other two that are really crucial are empathy and humility. Also understanding that someone that you're talking to has experienced different things than you have, and maybe has their views have been shaped by that. And no matter how much you want to think that you can put yourself in their shoes, you just can't. And so having understanding that just because they disagree with you, you have no idea what they've gone through. Yeah. And then that's where the humility kicks in to maybe understand, maybe I don't know everything. And maybe I need to shift my views. And so if you can go into every conversation like this with love, respect, empathy and humility, you won't lose. You will never get to a point where you walk away and you both hate each other if you kind of embrace those four things.
Well, Pastor Steve says something all the time, and you may have heard it before. It's like hurt people hurt people. And we forget that when you look at any issue today, as extreme as, as small as political disagreements and as extreme as hate or racism, it's not to change your opinion about the thing, but it's to realize, man, that person was hurt so much in their life that they went down to this place. And I truly believe that the love of Jesus is the thing that can catalyze them back up out of the pit of their own sin and their own dark thoughts and whatnot. And there's boundaries and there's all of that. But never dehumanize somebody because of what they believe. I saw a lot of that 2 weeks ago before the election. Is if you then, and it's like, I'm not going to play that game. I just won't. And because you're still human, you were created by God, and if you were, then who am I to make the final judgment on a story that God has not finished writing? Yeah. And there are too many stories of God's redemption over the years and decades and centuries and millennia that God has redeemed and redeemed and redeemed the worst of people. That for me to just come to a final judgment on somebody's life based on something here and now that God has not finished writing. And so, but with that, there's a lot of disagreements in our world. We've probably all had conversations and even maybe navigated it ourselves, where you see things and it makes you question God, question the church. Is this real? Why do I believe this? This is making me discouraged. Is God really real? Because if he was, why would this be happening? Maybe a couple of us, as we kind of wrap up, can speak to that idea of what do you do when you have questions? What do you do when you doubt? How do you navigate that? Can you follow Jesus and still doubt? Maybe a couple of you could speak to that as we kind of close here.
I would say yes, you can follow Jesus when you doubt, because he is going to be there no matter what. Like, in the last couple years of my life, I've lost a couple close people to me in my life. One of them being my nephew when he was 4 hours old, taken from this world up. 4 hours old. And that's a question you can ask God, like, why did you do this? Why? But what I learned from that season is I could have hated God, and I did. I hated God for a season of my life. And it's okay, because he's going to love you no matter what. He's going to still show up to you. And during that season, the three things that helped me the most was one of them being people filling my life and just surrounding me through all the hard times. Second was prayer, just praying to God and just asking him questions. I never once asked, why did this happen? Because we don't know why it happens. And when you ask why, you spiral down and things keep coming that you don't want to happen. The last thing was worship. Just listen to worship. Listen to what God's speaking to you through worship. Because there are times where you're just alone with God, listening to worship, letting him speak over you. And when you doubt, it's okay to doubt, because God's going to take you into a season. He's going to take you into something new and change you for the better. And one day, you can help someone who might be going through the same thing as you did in your life.
That's great.
I think for me, at the beginning of all this, and I won't touch on anything specific, but I was angry at not God specifically, but the church. I was feeling like I didn't have the church having my back. And with that being said, I was spiteful. And I had like ways where I didn't do the right thing, as you would say, like I stopped coming or started thinking about stepping down in different areas, or being selfish in a way where it was like, I'm going to make everything that's going on in the world about me right now. And because I don't have that feeling of like, they don't have my back, then I'm not going to support them either. And it took a lot of like chewing on that and sitting in that like anger a little bit, like frustration, to be like, you know what? That's not right. Like, that's not who I am. That's not who God created me to be. That's not what the church is about. And I had to say some apologies to people. I've had conversations with people where I apologize. I've had conversations with people where I was like, you know what? Like, I was getting ready to do some different things and avenues in my world, and God pulled me back in because he never stopped pursuing me in that. And even though I was angry and hurt, I had my doubts, God loved me and he pursued me the entire time. And I would just say, like, yes, it's okay to doubt. It's okay to be angry. But know that it's not about you, right? It's about what God is doing in your life and how you can help change other people. So,
one of the things that I had a leader tell me was he was basically walking me through, because I was in this place where I was like, I wasn't doubting God. I mean, but there was times where I'm like, I don't know what's going on or how to work through this. And I've been a Christian my whole life. My dad was a pastor. I should know how to deal with this, but I don't. And so he encouraged me to try something, and this is just a practical tool that I would encourage you guys to try, where he's like, start with 15 minutes in the morning, read the Bible for 5 minutes, pray for 5 minutes, and then sit silent for 5 minutes. And just listen and allow God to speak. And I was like, okay, that's weird. And I tried it, and man, I had such a hard time with those last 5 minutes of being silent. I'm the kind of person, I always have music playing. I'm always watching something. I'm always have some sort of noise going on. Or even when I do my devotions, I listen to worship music. So I turned it all off. And I literally just sat there for 5 minutes. And for the first couple of days, it was excruciatingly long. But what it did was it allowed me to give God a chance to speak to me. Because when you're praying, you're asking him for stuff. You're always asking me, or this, or whatever it is. And do you ever just sit there and allow him to speak back and listen to what he has? And so it really changed everything. And now I've expanded that where, I do more than 5 minutes each or whatever. And then the second thing that I do is, when I go into the Word, I think it's easy when we go into the Bible. It's like, oh, it's just the Bible. We go in Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, whatever, Paul, and we just think of just the books. But I had this perspective shift again with the same leader, and he's like, go read 1 John, go read 1st, 2nd Peter, go read Matthew. These were Jesus's best friends. Like they knew him better than anyone on the planet Earth. And figure out what they have to say about this, because literally there's no one else on the planet that knew him better. And so that I just literally spent pretty much the first 5 months of COVID in Peter and John, and man, there was so much in there. So I don't know.
Yeah. Any last? I'll end it, but.
I don't want to take a ton of time with this, but I think it's really important that everybody in this room understands that every single person up here has dealt with doubt. I think it's easy for us to look at our pastors, look at the leaders that we have in our lives and say, they have a relationship with God that I don't have and I'll never get there. And to be like alienated because of that. Like I grew up in a church that was massive, and when I was in like 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, I was on fire, and then I got to a point where I was just like, you know what, I'm never going to be at the level my pastor is because I see him on fire for Jesus. And like years later, it came out that he was having an affair, and like that just shook me when that happened. But we have a tendency to put the important people in our lives on this pedestal. Every single leader up here has dealt with doubt in their lives, has dealt with hard things, has dealt with sin, and we will constantly be dealing with that through the rest of our lives. But it's this decision that we've had. It's not anything that we are doing or could ever do. It's because we put our faith in Jesus.
That's great.
And we know that he is the rock that doesn't change. Whereas every single one of us up here, we would love you until the end of time, but we will let you down at some point. And if you continue to look to us, we will do everything that we can to lead you and guide you there. But there's one person that won't falter from that. And if you can hold on to that and put him on a pedestal and then look to guidance for people in your lives, it kind of takes some of that hurt away that potentially could come down the road, as we all are human and deal with that.
Well, I think you have to dictate your doubt. You have to decide what your doubt means. And if you give your doubt too much power, that's where it gets dangerous. It's been argued that Jesus doubted on the cross, where he did everything he did, and then there was this moment of extreme pain and knowing that he was carrying the weight of all of this on his shoulders and in his hands and in his head and in his back and in his feet and on his side. And in this moment, he says on the cross, he screams out in excruciating pain, God, why have you forsaken me? And some would argue that that was a moment where he's like, wait, was I wrong this whole time? Because Jesus was fully God, but he was also fully man. And in that moment of humanity, he wrestled with that doubt. And yet moments later, he said, God, I guess I'm about to find out. He says, into your hands I commit my spirit. And he breathes his last breath. What we know then is he goes into hell, conquers hell, brings back the keys. And, he rises from the grave. But what we know is it was that moment of humanity.
Yeah.
It's okay to have that.
Yeah.
But your doubt does not define you.
Yeah.
So define your doubt. Wrestle with it. Say, this is doubt, but I'm not defined by it. I'm not going to let it mean more than it means. I'm going to wrestle with it.
Yeah. Can I add one last
You
thing?
can.
Okay.
We're going to go till 9.
There's just too many good questions. Someone said on there, we got to do a part 2 of this. I agree.
Let's do it.
There's just so many good questions. But when it comes to doubt in God, in the church, in your faith, I think one thing that's super hard is that we've attached so much of like our relationship with God being the fact that we believe in him. So it's like if we start to doubt, the fear is that the people here won't love me. Like, I'm not going to be welcomed to church, and this is my place, this is my community, these are my friends. And if I admit to people that, like, I really, on the scale of belief and unbelief, I'm way more on the unbelief side than the belief side, but I'm lifting my hands and doing all the church things, we're, like, afraid that we'll lose our value. And I think that's where we just have to remember the whole premise of this faith is that we're first loved. It's not because we believe in God and we love God back and now I'm good. It's like, you're just good as you are. So if you really start challenging your faith and actively questioning things and are feeling that the tension for you, and maybe it's not for everyone, but the tension for you lies in how will other people see me and will I be accepted? I just want to remind you that your value here isn't because you're such a dedicated follower. Like, your value in the church and in the church community isn't because you're so committed to following God that you'll never doubt anything. And if you doubt or step out of line, someone's not going to, like, accept you. Like Tyler was saying, every single leader that you have ever seen on a platform, speaking, whatever, leading a group, they've doubted in God. And your value isn't by just, being a follower who never questions. Like, we have more depth and richness in our relationship with God and our understanding when we have questions, and we do it actively. And we say, I'm going to question things and ask myself, why do I really believe this? And you're loved no matter what. If you tell all your leaders, hey, you're stupid now, God's not real, the answer is still, we love you no matter what. So you don't have to question that.
Yeah. We could go on and on. But what I would love to do is I would love to pray. And raise your hand if you think we should do this again. Maybe we'll do part 2 in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Make it part of our UD Christmas in December. I do want to, before I pray, shout out one doubt that I've had is whether the 2 phones that are leaning unevenly on Hannah the whole time, how did they not fall? One was like crooked on her knee. The other one was like on the edge of the couch, and it stayed there. It was just incredible. So shout out to Hannah, huh?
You notice the weirdest things.
Well, I saw them there the whole time. Like, how are they staying there? So here's what I want to do. I want to pray. You all. I mean, there were 98 questions asked on here.
Sorry we didn't get to all of them.
And so that's a lot of questions, and I'm sure there were more that you would even ask, and we can't get to every question, obviously, but maybe tonight as we talked, relationship struggle, doubt, disagreement with a friend, whatever it is for you, grab a hold of the thing that hit you where you're at. And I just want you to clench your fist and hold it. And I want to pray that God that God would remind us that He is working in that. God is not absent, but sometimes God does work beneath the scenes. So let's pray for that. Yeah. I know up here, I can look around at our leaders, and I know that there are things that we're believing for, that we're having a hard time with, we're struggling with. I can look across this room and think, of all of the strength, but also all of the pain and the difficulties and the tension. And God is in all of it. So God, we thank you that you are present. Where we need you, you are there. Where we don't know that we need you, you are there. When we are high, you're there. When we are low, you are there. When we doubt and when we curse you, you are there. When we believe in you and we worship, you are there. And everything in between, God, you are there. So God, would we take comfort tonight knowing that we do not have to have this figured out, but yet you are working in the midst of all of our inequities, in all of our insufficiencies, in all of our shortcomings, in all of our failures, and in all of our triumphs. God, you are working all of it around so that it can work for our good and for the good of others in our community. And we just thank you for all that you're doing. We pray your protection. We pray your peace. We pray, God, just that the best would still be ahead for each and every one of us here tonight, and each person watching this tonight and even later this week. We just love you, God. We thank you for all that you're doing. In Jesus' name, everyone said, Amen. Hey, can we give it up for these leaders? And we give it up for our middle school leaders in the other room with all of our middle schoolers as well. They can't hear us, but we hear them. And hey, I love you guys. If you could grab your stuff, you are dismissed. We will see you in